Yes, I had actually thought we would give a presentation, but I do understand that since it's closing remarks, I believe that we could have another program where we could give more details of the work of the Secretariat, especially the presentation on women in the protocol on women in youth and trade. However, let me just thank the previous speakers. I think this was a very insightful meeting. And I think from the Secretariat's side, I was really impressed with the work that some of the institutions are actually doing on ground. And I'm seeing an opportunity to leverage and take advantage of, whatever collaboration we can come up with to assist or collaborate in with the implementation of the protocol on women in youth and trade. However, let me just go straight to my closing remarks. I will begin with salutations, of course, to the International Trade Institute of Southern Africa representatives, South Africa Youth Trade Association president and his team, representatives of youth organizations present in this meeting, partners and allied institutions. I thank you for your participation and I greet you this evening. It is with a great pleasure and immense honor that the AfCFTA Secretariat is present in this meeting. This meeting holds enormous significance as we recognize and empower the youth of Africa and their pivotal role in shaping the future of our continent, particularly the future of looking forward to the implementation of the AfCFTA agreement and its protocols. May I also, from the onset again, thank the SA Youth Trade Association team for organizing this meeting. It comes at a critical time when the AfCFTA Secretariat has actually concluded the negotiations of the first ever protocol on women and youth in trade. I acknowledge the potential of young people in this room, but also in Africa. And also I urge the leaders in this meeting to also acknowledge the power that lies within them. The youth of Africa possess the necessary resilience, and innovation, and determination to lead Africa and the AfCFTA revolution, especially in the context of intra-Africa trade. They are the catalyst and torchbearers of change, capable for transforming Africa's economic landscape. Ladies and gentlemen, currently the continent has the highest youth unemployment levels, especially in the sub-Saharan region, which stood at 48% in the year 2022, against the global average of approximately 17%. The high levels of youth unemployment have been a major source of social life strife among many African young people in African countries. This includes illegal immigration, dangerous attempts to cross the Mediterranean Sea. This has robbed the continent many youthful and innovative youth lives. In some parts of Africa, high levels of unemployment have led to civil and political unrest, a situation that has further accelerated the levels of poverty and low productivity on the continent. I think this can be very much in evidence to what has just happened in Kenya. You will agree with me that the AfCFTA, with a combined population of 1.3 billion people and GDP of approximately $3.5 trillion, provides a necessary conditions for enhancing continental value chains, anchor intra-Africa trade, and of course, anchor value addition. This is key to ensuring that Africa attains the level of industrialization capable for creating jobs for young people and wealth for African citizens necessary to address, it's necessary to address the high levels of unemployment, inequality, and poverty. May I also take this opportunity I have just given a background of, the necessity of the AfCFTA agreement, its ratification, addressing youth unemployment. And I would like to now share with you what the AfCFTA Secretariat has done in terms of empowering young people and looking into youth and women inclusion within the operations of the AfCFTA and also the AfCFTA framework. Allow me to inform you on the decision of the 35th Ordinary Summit of the African Union Assembly that was held in February 2022 in Addis Ababa, which heads of states, actually, let me recall first before the 35th Ordinary Summit that was held in 2022, let me recall the 13th Extraordinary Summit that was held virtually when President Ramaphosa was still the African Union chair, when he influenced the heads of states and requested that the protocol on women and youth in trade should be negotiated. He acknowledged the fact that the AfCFTA agreement has gained its attention and mostly support from heads of states, but also recognized that without the involvement of women and youth within this agreement, it will not have its impact in the African continent. And therefore, it was at this 13th Extraordinary Summit that heads of states agreed that the AfCFTA Secretariat shall come up with a protocol on women and youth that will integrate women and youth within the implementation of the AfCFTA agreement. It was then at the 35th Ordinary Summit of the AU Assembly that was held in 2022 in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, which the heads of states finally assigned the AfCFTA Secretariat to work and begin the negotiations on the protocol on women and youth in trade. The inclusion of the protocol on women and youth in trade within the scope of the AfCFTA the AfCFTA agreement is founded on the commitment, of course, of the AU Assembly to broaden inclusiveness in the operation of the AfCFTA through interventions that support young African women and small and medium enterprises, as well as integrating informal cross-border traders into formal economy by implementing a simplified trade regime. Further, the inclusion of women and youth in the AfCFTA agreement contributes to the broader mission of increasing the role of women across the role of African women across all aspects of development to achieve the agenda, the aspiration 6 of the Agenda 2063, which envisages an Africa whose development is people-driven, relying on the potential of African people, especially its women and youth, and caring for children. And of course, the United Nations Development, the Sustainable Development Goal number 5, which talks about attaining gender equality and empower all women and girls by 2030. Therefore, we believe from the AfCFTA Secretariat that this protocol within the AfCFTA framework, it is a testament of our continent's commitment for ensuring that young people are not left behind. But most importantly, it is one of the highest decisions that African heads of states, these are presidents, have ever committed to ensure that this protocol will be implemented, because it is a legally binding protocol. The protocol addresses the reality on ground that women and youth face unique challenges when it comes to participating in trade, entrepreneurship. Overcoming these barriers is not only a matter of gender equality, but we believe it's also critical for our economic progress. Women and youth make up a significant proportion of our African population, and by empowering them, we unlock the potential to become agents of change in Africa, economic drivers and leaders in their respective fields. To fully leverage the benefits of the AfCFTA agreement, We believe that we must eliminate gender equality, in which this is one of the focus of the Protocol on Women and Youth in Trade, and improve accessibility, capacity building, and financing opportunities for women and youth in trade. And all these are actually addressed and have provisions under the Protocol on Women and Youth in Trade, which actually specify, this provisions actually specify what member states or state parties to the AfCFTA agreement should do on ground to make sure that young people access finance, gender equality is addressed, and improve accessibility to, of course, trade information, trade market on ground. So member states are urged to come up with initiatives that could actually address this, all these issues. I've also spoke about capacity building. The protocol urges member states to make sure that young people are being taught about export readiness, standards of international trade, but also on its own, what is the AfCFTA, what is the Protocol on Women and Youth in Trade, and what does the protocol actually have for young people. We need to remove these barriers that hinder young people's participation. That should, the protocol actually urges member states to enhance young people and women and SME skills and knowledge on entrepreneurship, so that they can be able to contribute or participate fully into cross-border trade. This protocols actually calls for targeted initiatives, including mentorship programs, incubators, support networks, and also to nurture and amplify the potential of women and youth in trade. It seeks to promote gender-responsive policies that provides equitable access to markets, capital, and technology. It is crucial that we also place a strong emphasis on promoting, of course, the digital literacy, e-commerce skills among women and youth. As you may know, ladies and gentlemen, that the Protocol on Women and Youth in Trade has also been adopted, but also on this one, the Protocol on digital trade has actually been adopted. So it means that member states are also very much urged to carry out capacity buildings on digital literacy, so that the young people can be able to benefit from all the provisions that favor them under the Protocol on digital trade. Moreover, this protocol aims to encourage governments and private sector entities to establish mechanisms and platforms that facilitate, of course, meaningful participation of women and youth in trade. Let me also share with you that the Protocol on Women and Youth in Trade is a legally binding protocol, meaning that heads of states that have negotiated this protocol, which I could also mention in this meeting, that these are heads of states that also that have ratified the AfCFTA agreement itself, understands that there may be consequences that they may be posed to if they are not able to implement some of the provisions under the Protocol on Women and Youth in Trade. The protocol was successfully adopted earlier this year in February during the 37th Ordinary Summit, where both the Protocol on Women and Youth in Trade and digital trade were successfully adopted. But also, let me also share with you that the AfCFTA Secretariat under the Protocol on Women and Youth in Trade, Article 4.4, had requested that the Secretariat should develop a ministerial regulation as an annex to the protocol. This is one of the first implementation strategies of the protocol. We are currently developing a ministerial regulation on preferential market access for women and youth in trade. And I have just returned from Mozambique, where member states have deliberated on this ministerial regulation. And therefore, this is one of our first implementation strategy of the protocol. The ministerial regulation will be signed by all ministers of trade, of course. That actually indicates that that would actually commit to say that, of course, our presidents have ratified to the protocol on to the AfCFTA agreement. we as the member states recognize the importance of the protocol on women and youth in trade, and we are committing to implementing this protocol through the following parts, which are actually stipulated in the ministerial regulation. Also, perhaps before I conclude my closing remarks, let me also share with you some of the initiatives that the AfCFTA Secretariat has actually engaged on when it comes to youth empowerment and engagement. Prior to negotiating the protocol on women and youth in trade, of course, we have held national consultations through member states who have actually put together young people in their countries that are involved either in business, who have businesses that have potential to trade across borders, but also with those young people who are already on ground trading across borders, actually carrying out national consultations to find out what are the actual problems that are actually facing on ground when they are trying to carry out their day-to-day trade. And we also had from national consultations with few countries, we also had regional, where we partnered with regional economic communities on how, where we gathered, of course, young people who are majorly into trade within their regional economic communities. We also further on the last consultations that we did before the negotiations held, that the Women and Youth in Trade Conference that was held in Tanzania last year, where we had separate roundtables on women and youth. And I think this one was very important for us as the facilitators of the negotiations, because it brought young people across the continent together to now deliberate on what issues are they envisioning they could face when they trade under the AfCFTA. And this, of course, was guided by all those challenges they have encountered when they were trading, within their regions. So we were able to take all these recommendations and put them in the draft protocol that was negotiated by member states. It was not easy, of course, but I can assure you that for the first time ever in the history of negotiating trade agreements, we have seen that member states were also very keen to send their chief negotiators from ministries of trade, but these chief negotiators were coming with young people to these meetings. We have never had private sector in negotiations before, but with the Women and Youth in Trade Protocol, member states realized that we are not going to send only trade negotiators who have been negotiating all the trade agreements or protocols to this protocol. We believe that they can be guided better when they are with a young person in this meeting or an association in this meeting. So that is the process that we actually carried out, or we took prior to the negotiations. And we also now, after the adoption of the protocol on women and youth in trade, continued our engagement with the young people. And I'm very happy that we are now here at the Secretariat as, now being introduced to the South Africa Youth in Trade Association, because we are looking forward to the implementation of this protocol. And we're actually looking forward to increasing our database of young people who are actually working on, youth economic empowerment in their countries. Last year, we had our first ever AfCFTA Youth Symposium, which was actually the first initiative to try to bring young people together across the continent, especially those in business, in trade, and those in championing business supporting organizations or social entrepreneurs in the sector of youth in trade. Yes, and the main outcome of the AfCFTA Youth Symposium that was held in Zambia last year was the young people deliberated and recommended that a committee on women in youth and trade should be formed. So we then formed a task force